Hi there everyone, I'm Amanda Hutter from Greenfeed Ecosystem Services. So I'm out today with my daughter, Maylee. Say hi, Maylee. And we are picking fiddleheads. Now before we get into anything, I'm going to segue really quickly into a quick explanation about where our fiddleheads come from. Our fiddleheads come from river systems. Specifically, they come from river systems in the Saugeen Watershed. Now, a watershed is kind of like a big bowl. When water hits the edges of the bowl, it'll either flow into the bowl or away from the bowl. So Bruce County, or Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, where our harvesting areas are located, is made up of many different watersheds and sub-watersheds. So we're picking in the Saugeen Watershed, which all flows into the Saugeen River. I'm not going to tell you exactly the locations that we pick our fiddleheads from, and that's just to protect some of these areas where we harvest. In the Saugeen Watershed, you can see from some of the videos here that we have a lot of farm fields in this area. Now that's not a bad thing. Luckily, we also have a lot of different organizations that are doing some really cool work to try and protect the health of this watershed. They're doing things like tree planting, making ponds, and especially making riparian buffer strips. So the area between a high water mark and the edge of a farm field in this area is actually called a riparian buffer. So those riparian buffers are most effective when they're at least 30 meters or 100 feet wide. And that'll include a couple of different types of vegetation that actually help to filter some of the farm nutrient runoff. The filtration that those strips of vegetation provide is actually an ecosystem service, and you can take advantage of those for free. So for any of our farmers out there, just keep in mind that if you're starting to plow any closer than about 30 meters from the river's edge, you start losing those services that all of that vegetation is providing in filtering all of your farm runoff. That's going to run into the water system and flow downstream. It just costs everybody in the end. So try to keep as much of a riparian buffer on your farm fields as you can. Quick shout out, of course, to all the farmers along these river systems that are keeping nice, thick vegetation buffers around our water systems. Those are the things that keep our water systems really safe and really healthy in this area. So long story short, we try to pick our fiddleheads in areas where we have a long system of good, thick riparian buffers lining the edges of the creeks or the river systems that we're picking from. Now, let's get down to business. We're going to zoom in here and take a nice close look at where these fiddleheads are growing. So usually where you'll find fiddleheads is right along the shores of river systems. Now this particular river system does have a lot of farm runoff that's coming into it during the spring runoff. But what that actually does is fertilize a number of the fiddleheads that are starting to come up. When you're walking through the bush, you'll see a lot of these long grass-like looking stalks. Those are actually the ferns from the previous season. And as you're walking, you'll see these big lumps. Inside this lump is the fiddleheads that are starting to come up. So be careful where you're walking when you're walking by river systems, because growing along the shorelines are usually hundreds and thousands of these little fiddlehead plants coming up. So another little something that you want to keep an eye on when you're picking fiddleheads in an area that you've been picking for a couple of years is the general health of the plants. So as you're coming through, before you even start picking, take a look at the size of the fiddleheads. Take a look at how thick the fiddleheads are. Take a look at if you have nice thick fronds coming up. Because sometimes if you find an area that's been overpicked, you'll start to see the fiddleheads coming up skinny. This will have been a plant that's been overpicked from the previous season, and we know that this particular area has been overpicked last season because we saw a number of fronds cut to the core. So if you look at the difference between one which hasn't been overpicked and one which has been, you can notice a very big size difference between the thickness and the girthiness of those fiddleheads themselves. So that's one thing you want to be watching out for. If you see plants that are too skinny, just leave them. If you see that all of the plants coming up in a particular area are too skinny, just leave the area. Don't plan on picking anything from that area for that season. Just give that area a little bit of time to recuperate. Careful, sweetie. Good girl. All right, just two.
Over here.
Yeah, good girl.